I was thinking about this quite a while ago, and I thought, how am I going to pull that one together? Because this is what I really want to talk about. And so, the first one gave me the idea. This is the very first miracle of Jesus, where he turns water into wine. Personally, one of my favorite miracles. And I thought, the wind-up, right? Get it? There we go. Next week is the pitch, where Jesus pitches the demons into the herd of pigs. All right, it'll make more sense as we go along, trust me. This is an amazing story. It's an interesting story, but John is the only one that actually tells it. Matthew, Mark, and Luke don't even talk about this. They go right into Jesus going into the desert. But John says that Jesus and his disciples went to a party. And not just any party, but a Jewish wedding party. Now you have to understand, a Jewish wedding party would go on for just about an entire week. And I'm sure some of the guests brought their own coolers and brought some of their own refreshments. But the host was, well, they were to ante up most of the food and most of the wine. And in Jesus' day, this probably costs a lot more than you think. This week-long celebration would have wine and food flowing, and if you didn't have enough, it was a sign that you were too poor, or you were too cheap, or you didn't care enough about your guests. We might think in terms of a couple cases of champagne for a couple of hours, but we hear that there were 6 man-sized jars of water that were turned into wine for this festivity. This festivity could have bankrupted a family, and to think that you would run out was just the worst thing possible. When we hear in today's gospel that the story is about a family wedding, we kind of have an idea of how this story is going to go. We know something's going to happen. It's going to be something uncomfortable. It might be something a little stressful, something that reveals a truth about the family in the story. Mary has brought Jesus to the wedding. It was probably one of her relatives. That's why she was invited. And that's why Jesus got the invitation. It doesn't take a lot of imagination to picture Jesus going somewhat grudgingly. This is just a cousin or an aunt or an uncle twice removed. I have got better things to do, Mom. I've got miracles to do. I've got teaching. But he goes. Dragged along by his mother like a good Jewish son, he goes to the wedding. The disciples were invited as well. We really don't know why they were invited, but they had a part to play, and they had a part to tell about what happens. So we know the story. The unthinkable happens, and the host of the reception runs out of wine. Mary, the ever-observant one, sees what's happening and feels pity for her host, this cousin or aunt or uncle twice removed. And she goes to Jesus because she knows that Jesus can do anything. But will he? Really? Just because he can do it doesn't mean he will do anything about it. But she tells him the problem, and his immediate reaction is not good. Perhaps he hasn't anticipated that this, the first sign of his greatness, is going to be solving a problem at a family wedding reception. Perhaps he's still annoyed at having his work interrupted by having to go to this family wedding. And John doesn't say that the wine ran out. Instead, he says, when the wine ran out. And I think that's an important distinction, implying that nothing lasts forever. Not a good party, not the wine. And it was no surprise to John that the wine ran out, nor should it be to us. But what's really interesting in the story is the interplay, the exchange between Mary and Jesus. When she mentions the problem to him, not nagging, just observing, even though he thinks that it departs from his plan of action, he responds in a very quiet, in a very visible way. John says that Jesus' mother, Mary, comes to him and the boys who'd been enjoying the wine, and I can just imagine her just kind of cutting her eyes to the side and looking at Jesus and saying, "The wine's run out." And the implication is, and I know you had something to do with it, you and the boys. She says this to him, and there isn't an explanation of why it ran out. Maybe it was Jesus and his disciples, but regardless, whether it was they that had contributed to the problem, Mary knew Jesus could do something about it if he wanted to. But what he says to her is not, "Yep, get right on that, Mom." He says, "Oh, woman, what has this to do with me or you? My time has not yet come." But Mary doesn't let it rest there. Then the most curious thing happens. It appears she gave Jesus just one more look, one more of the mom stares, and she says to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you to do." It's like she's saying to him, "Young man, you may be the Messiah, but I am still your mother. Do what I ask you to do." His relationship with his mother trumps what he thought he might want to do. So what happens next? Well, Jesus instructs the servant to bring these huge, huge jars of water, and he turns them into wine so that the festivities can continue. And this wasn't this huge, grand miracle, with angels singing. It wasn't like the dove coming down from heaven and the voice of God. It was quiet. There wasn't this big fanfare. He just quietly says to the servants to get the water. And then the water gets taken up, which is now wine, to the steward. The steward has no idea what's happened. Absolutely. He only knows that he has brought this wine, which is the really good stuff. But this not extravagant miracle is the first sign of Jesus and his awesome power. All of us, at some point in our lives, will come to a moment when our wine has run out. We might feel defeated. We might feel that we are empty, and we need a miracle. The moment when we feel utterly incapable of going on and doing what we're supposed to do, doing what we believe in, what we hope for, what we're committed to, utterly incapable of going on. Sometimes we are weary of doing good, and we hit that moment of compassion fatigue where our wine has run out. Maybe we've come to the moments in our marriages where the love has run out and it's harder than anything else to keep going. That wine has run out. Maybe in our jobs, our work leaves us feeling empty. And it's more work than it's even possible to get up in the morning and just go there. That wine has run out. And again, the question is not that the wine has run out, but when will the wine run out? And what will we do when it does? And Mary, the mother of Jesus, gives us the answer. Do what he tells you to do. Do what Jesus tells us to do. It's so simple that it's beautiful. Do what Jesus tells us to do. Tells us to pray. He tells us to love. He tells us to serve. He tells us to care for others, to be compassionate, to forgive, to nurture and strengthen one another, to sustain each other, to be kind and considerate to one another, and to stand with those who have been marginalized. In other words, it's another way to say, leave the game how you found it. Share what you have with each other. Hold hands with those who are struggling. And when you're crossing over the scary bits, the vulnerable parts, hold the hand of someone you love or who loves you. It means you don't have to leave the party when the wine runs out, or when you're down by 10 runs in the 9th inning. You see, it's not the worst thing to swing and miss in our jobs, in our marriages, in our lives. It's not the worst thing to run out of wine, because that leads us to turn to Jesus Christ in the challenging moments, to turn to God and to turn to each other a little more often, opening up to others just a little bit more, causing us to be a little more humble, a little more honest, a little more interdependent, rather than thinking that we are the star of the game. And that's not a bad thing. Life is a team sport. We're not in this alone. And if you're anything like me, you might feel a little embarrassed when you swing and miss, when life doesn't go exactly how you'd hoped it would go. You might feel like you really don't want to reach out and ask for help or take someone's hand when you need it. But that's what we're here for. That's why God has placed us in communities of faith, why God has placed us in families. And that embarrassment of asking for help is outdistanced by the gratitude and the relief that you feel when someone walks alongside you. Because when they do, they are being Christ to you. If Jesus could take up a towel and wrap it around his waist and wipe the feet of his disciples, then we are called to serve others, to help others in their challenging moments. The least we can do is offer the cup of wine of support and encouragement and understanding and empathy and love, hope and community when your wine has run out. Tom Lane, who is a Christian author, says, if Jesus could transform common water into wedding wine, spit and dirt into new sight, troubled sea into pathway, well water into living water, could Christ transform the waters of my life, shallow, murky, polluted, stagnant, sour, into a shower of blessing. I'm going to leave you with a little baseball story that someone sent to me just recently. One afternoon, Shay, who was a severely physically and mentally disabled young boy, was walking with his father past a park where there were some kids playing baseball. And Shay said to his dad, "Do you think they'll let me play?" Shay's father knew that his son had challenges. His son was not athletic, and most of the boys would not want him to play. But he also knew that if they did let him play, that sense of community, that sense of belonging would just make Shay's day. So the father approached the boys and said, "Would you let him play?" And one boy, who seemed to be the leader, looks around at the other guys, asks for their opinions, and getting none, he makes a decision. Yeah, he could play. 8th inning, we're down by 6 runs, but we're going to try and put him up to bat in the 9th inning. Well, in the bottom of the 9th inning, Shay's team scored again and again, and now they were this close. They needed 3 runs to win. There were 2 on base, and Shay was up to bat. And Shay's dad wondered if they would actually let him bat. But they did. He got up to bat, and the pitcher comes in really close, and he lobs a really gentle one. And Shay swung, and he missed. It's okay. Pitcher comes in just a little closer, and he hit just a short one, and Shay connected. Just a little dribble just right out to the pitcher. And the pitcher picked it up. And it was going to be an easy out. But he threw the ball way over the first baseman's head. And everybody's yelling, "Shay, run to first, run to first." And he scampered down to first, and he was just as astonished as everyone else. But when he got there, the first baseman who retrieved the ball threw it to third, way, way over there. And everybody's yelling, "Shay, run to second, run to second." And he did, and when he got to second, the shortstop points him towards third, and the third baseman bobbles it out into the field, and he runs to third. And then they yell at him, "Shay, run home, run home." And he did, and he scored the winning run, and they picked him up on his shoulders, and they carried him around, and Shay's smile was something so beautiful to behold. That cup of community, of sharing, of empathy, of love, those boys got it. They had it in spades. This story in John is not just a happy story about a wedding that went right, about how Jesus saved a party. The story of Shay isn't just a happy little story about winning a baseball game. This story is a resurrection story, reminding us that when the wine runs out, our wine runs out, and we are in the 9th inning, Jesus is the one who keeps throwing parties and issuing invitations to come to his party, to join his beautiful game, to be with him in the challenging moments of our lives, and always to take that best wine that he offers to us, the wine of compassion and empathy and love. And when we drink this wine like good wine, it causes us to turn the waters of selfishness into the wine of community. We stop withholding what we have out of fear and lean back in the confidence and the assurance that Jesus will never stop being the team player, that Jesus has the wine that will never run out. Let's play ball. Amen.